Next matter under nomination papers, Ronald A. Andrucha, Representative District 14.
How are you?
Am I saying your name correctly?
Yes, sure.
Do we have the documents? Mr. Macascio, do you have anything you'd like to?
I do not. I think if we should first have each of the people present identify themselves, and then we should introduce the exhibits as full unless there is any objection to
Very
the
good.
My name is Ronald Armand Andruchuk.
Good evening, Madam Chairwoman, members of the board. Nicholas Lima, registrar for the City of Cranston Board of Canvassers, here to represent the board if there are any questions for us regarding the nomination papers.
Very good.
Madam Chair, David Gliozzi, representing the City of Cranston.
Thank you.
Board of Canvassers as well as the City.
Very good.
And Bob, do we have I think you have original documents there. We should mark those as exhibits. How many documents do you have?
I have the original complaint appeal that was filed by Mr.
Andruchuk.
Andruchuk. We'll mark that as Exhibit A. I also have four nomination papers that have been submitted. Could we mark it Exhibit B?
Do you have any other exhibits? Is that it? Okay. Do the parties have any objection to both exhibits being marked as full?
No.
Done by the city.
Then I think, Madam Chair, that Mr. Andruchuk has filed this appeal. It would be appropriate to hear him at this time.
Let's hear from you.
How are you? So I believe I have 44 total that have been in my favor towards the 50 needed signatures. And I believe that some were discredited based on the signature. Some signatures were printed in the signature box, but the individuals did sign off on those papers for me. So I'm new to this, and I wasn't sure if that can be overruled, because they did sign for my nomination, but the signature did not match what's on their voter registration.
Okay.
And there's at least 6, which would give me my 50.
So you're saying there were 6 signatures that were appropriately signed? Is that what you're saying?
Yes. And if they were to be contacted, I believe they would also agree that they signed those documents.
Mr. Raposa, has the staff reviewed that document?
Madam Chairwoman, the staff did review all the nomination papers. The number that was shown on the Secretary of State Central Voter Registration System did validate 44 of the 50 required signatures. During the staff review of any signature that was disqualified, we identified 4 that should, in our opinion, have been counted. So that would have brought the total to 48.
Could I ask a question?
Yes.
Mr. Raposa, were any signatures disqualified because the name was signed where it should be printed and vice versa, or were all those counted? Because that's one of the objections. You said that they were disqualified. Now, we didn't hear from Cranston, but one of the arguments he seems to be making is that a person signed the paper and printed their name, but they did it in the reverse order from the actual sheet.
We actually went through and we checked each one of these that has been disqualified. I have the sheets, If you would like, I can pass them around to you and you can see if any of them that have an X mark were done incorrectly. The first column, so you know, is the signature. The second column is the printing of the voter's name.
You mark the ones that have been disqualified by our staff.
We do not disqualify. Our staff does not disqualify. The only thing we did is we looked at those names that were disqualified by the Cranston Board of Canvassers to verify that we were in agreement or disagreement with their decision. And of the ones that they had disqualified, we feel 4 of them should have been. And I have here attached screens from the Central Voter Registration System that shows that they are registered voters and they were in the proper district.
For the 4 signatures.
Of the 4 that we have.
But there are 2 that are still short.
He's still short.
2, although he submitted 50 signatures.
He submitted more than 50 signatures, but some were disqualified.
116.
So, out of 116 signatures, the board only validated 44.
160 or 60?
I thought it was 116 originally, but I'm being informed that it's 108.
Should we hear from the local board, or is that appropriate at this
We
point?
could, or Madam Chair, you could first review whatever, the document that Mr. Reposa was circulating, and that would be.
Yes, we have a question.
I will also confirm the number as 108.
Bob, are the voter registration cards for all 6 that he claims to be valid here, or is it just the 4 that you found to be
The
valid?
4 that we found were valid were printed out and included in this package for you.
Just for clarification, we have X's of all those invalid or
X's are invalid.
X's are invalid?
Check marks are good. And then some of them, sometimes the local board will write NR, not registered, or joint district WD, but most times.
It's helpful to put why.
On that first sheet.
Oh, you.
I also was not aware if I could sign for myself, which would bring that to 49. But I did not sign it, so.
You're the first one you should have signed.
But I was getting confused on Thursday, so I had to get Thank you.
May I ask a question of the witness, just so I understand?
Yes, of course.
Not the witness, but Mr. Andrew Chuck, just so I understand, do you have exactly how many are you saying should be added to your account?
When I was reviewing the documents last night, I believe that at least I confirmed 6 that should be added.
You say in your notice that you know for sure some signatures were wrongly disqualified. Do you have some information you want to present to the board on that? And if so, we'll swear you in so we have a factual record.
Well, one example would be 10 Micah Avenue. 1 was accepted and 2 were disqualified. And there's another instance.
We should, I think once the board is ready, we should at least, we could swear you in, but we could also, if you're going to present factual testimony, but you may want to point out for the board which signatures you're saying should be added back into the nomination papers as accepted. We have 4 that the board staff has already indicated should be, so perhaps we could let the petitioner know the other 2 that were not, to see if those are 2 that he thinks should be added in. That could be the focus of his argument. It's on the first
Four
part.
has 4 that we identified.
The first sheet.
The first sheet.
Could we permit him to take some time to go through
I don't see why not.
and identify the signatures he thinks should be qualified?
I know the other 2, if part of the 4 were not 10 Micro Ave, I know that there's 2 from 10 Micro Ave, that would make it 6. And
Is he going all the way through?
I would like to hear which ones he thinks should be.
Okay, well, why don't we at this point then give the gentleman some time to do that, and while he's doing that, we could do our mail ballot certification, Bob,
Yeah, we absolutely.
and we'll come back to you when we've concluded that.
Sure.
How many mail ballots here?
Chair, we should also see if there's anyone else who would like to be a part of this particular proceeding. If so, they should come
Should
forward.
come forward,
Thank you.
and identify yourself, please, for the record.
Thank you. My name is Charlene Lima. I am the state rep. Oh, I'm sorry. My name is Charlene Lima. I am the state representative currently in District 14.
Thank you. So we would like to hear from you at this point.
Thank you. As with the previous case, I would first like to notify the board that I had no idea there was an objection going on. I relied on the Cranston Board of Canvassers that there were 44 signatures that had qualified. And I would like to notify the board, when I did realize by a friend of mine who read it in the Providence Journal today, this afternoon, they called me and told me, and then I proceeded on my own to look at the signatures, and I did find at minimum 2 signatures that were qualified where they do not live at that address, and I can give you that information. And I would also state that I am very concerned that in 2 incidences, and in one you had heard on 10 Micro Avenue, if you look, this is, you don't have to be an expert, it's the exact same person, which I believe is against the law because it says that I signed these papers saying that you signed in front of me. Well, these 3 people have the exact same signature, every letter in their name and their address. And that causes me a great deal of concern.
Okay, is that all you have to say at this point?
I think so, thank you.
Okay.
Could I ask the Board of Canvassers, did you look at those 3? The 3 that you just mentioned?
The 3 names she's talking about is Micro Avenue, and those were all disqualified.
So those 3 were already disqualified.
Mr. Iglesias, what was the basis for disqualifying, just so we're
Okay, the ones on Micro Avenue were disqualified for signature did not match. Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chairwoman, maybe I could just kind of get to the point. There were 9 out of all the disqualifications. There were 9 that involved signatures that did not match. That's the nub of this issue here. The rest were out of district, not registered voters, and that was confirmed by Mr. Repose's office. During the break, I reviewed the 4 names that Mr. Repose's office indicated they would put back on the ballot, and the person who did it came over and said they reviewed it from the context of where they are registered voter. We did not challenge those 4 unregistered voters. We challenged them because their names did not match. So I would want the record to reflect that Mr. Repose's office did not review them from the point of view of matching the names, and I showed them to both.
So those should be reviewed by the board?
Absolutely. And I've indicated that to Mr. Lima and the young lady who reviewed them, who was in the office, and she said she didn't review them from the point of view from signatures did not match. And the reason why they're so, in these particular cases, 3 of those 4 signatures, again, not only do not match the person who seemed to have filled them out on this.
What address?
This is 6 Standish Avenue, 60 Standish Avenue. Those 3 signatures, not only do they not match the people who registered to vote at that address, if you look at the 3 signatures, one under another here, it's obvious that they were written by the same person. Obviously, I'm not a handwriting expert, but that's something the board can take into consideration when you see every B look the same, every D look the same, every letter look the same. But
What was your response?
I agree. Pam was supposed to match the signatures. She told me she did not look at the signatures.
So she did not look at the signatures.
I can't
That was on the record.
That is correct.
we actually printed them out.
Yeah, there is an agreement from the staff that the signatures were different on the 4 people that we didn't have.
But with that being said, and that's good that the staff reviewed it, but it is a determination by the board as to the signatures being valid or not.
Right. And assuming that we agree with staff after review, that would still leave him at 40. Even if those 4 were accepted, he'd be at 48.
That's correct.
If they're not accepted, then he would be at 44.
That's correct.
Do you have any scenario in which he hits 50?
I do not.
Did you want to
One other
respond to
point.
that?
There's one additional one.
Yeah, I wanted to, Madam Chair, between the time of the appeal and today, there was a name on the list. The address was not printed clearly. It appeared to be 144 Cranston Street, and that signature was rejected. But upon closer review, it was determined that it's 1214 Cranston Street, and it is, since we would submit and stipulate that it should be accepted. So the city of Cranston's position is there are 45 good signatures.
And even if you add those other 4, we're still 1 short.
Right, I just wanted to put that in the mix, even if you were to add the other 4.
So you've added that to the record.
Certainly, Mr. Lima wanted that to be on the record.
Very good, thank you.
I do know there was a case I was reviewing last night where the husband or the wife was accepted and the spouse was not. But I don't have it in front of me, and that would make it, once again, 50.
But how would this board determine which one was signed by whom? With that, in the absence of testimony, how would they determine that?
Understood.
Anyone have any other questions?
Does the statement that made about signatures, that falls on the person who has that paper to make? Paper person who is out submitting the signatures, that person should not accept more than 1 signature from the person who's writing their names on it. It's very simple. The candidate or the representative of the candidate should know that for a fact that that's illegal, that you can't do that. So the board, rightly so, rejected those names. But that's something that definitely maybe we have to instill better in our training for people who go out to get signatures. You only sign your name, and that's it, once on the nomination paper.
That's a good point, Mr. West.
Madam Chairman, I would move.
Let's go. So go ahead. You do it. Yeah. I'd like to move that the board accept the decision of the board of canvassers.
Move to accept the decision of the Board of Canvassers. Do we have a second? This is the
Second.
Cranston Board of Canvassers. Seconded by Jerrickson. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The ayes have it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.